The galaxy had been silent for 3 years. Park Gina sat alone in the communications room of the research vessel Endurance, surrounded by screens that showed nothing but static. She had been listening to dead channels for so long that she had almost forgotten what another voice sounded like. Every day, she scanned the same frequencies. Every day, she heard the same empty noise. But tonight was different. A small light blinked on her console. Gina sat up straight and adjusted her headset. The signal was weak, barely there, like a whisper from across the universe. She ran it through the ship's computer to clean up the noise and boost the strength. Words began to form. Broken, incomplete, but real. This is High Council of the Valori. Final message to any who. The silence has reached us. Our shields failed. Our people, gone in seconds. If anyone hears this, we are sorry. We did not understand what May the stars forgive. The message cut off with a sharp burst of static, then nothing. Gina sat frozen in her chair. Her hands were shaking. For 3 years, they had hoped. For 3 years, they had searched. And now she held proof in her hands that their worst fears were true. She stood up and walked quickly through the narrow corridors of the Endurance. The ship was old, built for exploration rather than war, but it had survived when so many others had not. Its metal walls were scratched and dented from years of service. The lights flickered sometimes. The engines made strange sounds. But it was home now. Captain Lee Dohan was in his quarters, studying old star maps on a cracked tablet. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had commanded Earth's Third Fleet during the Galactic War and had watched too many ships burn. Now he commanded a crew of 43 on a mission that nobody believed would find anything. Gina knocked on the door. Dohan looked up and saw her face. He knew immediately that something had changed. "What did you find?" he asked. Gina handed him the tablet with the recording. "The Valori. Their final transmission. They're gone, Captain. All of them." Dohan listened to the message twice. His expression did not change, but Gina saw his jaw tighten. The Valori had been the oldest civilization in the known galaxy. They had built wonders that humans could barely understand. And now they were dust. "Call the senior staff," Dohan said. "Everyone needs to hear this." 20 minutes later, they gathered in the small meeting room near the bridge. Chief Engineer Choi Yuna leaned against the wall with her arms crossed. She was young for her position, only 32, but she understood the Endurance better than anyone alive. Medical Officer Kang Taiho sat quietly, his kind face showing concern. Navigation Specialist Beak Sora stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Dowan played the recording. When it finished, nobody spoke for a long moment. "So it's confirmed," Yuna said finally. "Everyone is dead. Every species. Every civilization. Just us. Just us," Dohan repeated. Earth's last count was 2.3 billion survivors. "We are all that remains of intelligent life in the galaxy." Taiho rubbed his forehead. "How is that possible? The Valori were more advanced than us. The Mudarani had technology we couldn't even understand. The Os Collective had been in space for 10,000 years. And they all died while we lived? We don't know why," Gina said. "The message mentioned something called the silence. Whatever it was, it killed them instantly." Sora turned from the window. Her dark eyes were thoughtful. "We need to find out more. If we understand what happened, we might be able to prevent it from happening again." "Prevent what?" Yuna asked. "Everyone is already dead. Everyone except us," Sora replied. "And we still don't know why we survived. What if there's another threat? What if it comes back?" The room fell silent again. They had all been thinking it, but nobody had wanted to say it out loud. They were alone in a universe that had tried to kill everything. and they had no idea why they were still breathing. Doan looked at his crew. These were good people. Brave people. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return home. They deserved the truth, even if the truth was terrifying. Sora is right, he said. We need answers. The nearest fallen world is Thesser 4, the Mithrani colony. It's 2 weeks away at maximum speed. I'm proposing we investigate. And if we find something dangerous? Taiho asked. Then we document it and send the information back to Earth. Whatever killed the galaxy, humanity needs to understand it. The vote was unanimous. They would go to Thesser 4. Gina returned to her communications room and began preparing messages for Earth Command. The Endurance's quantum relay could send signals across vast distances, but there would be a delay. By the time Earth received their report, they would already be at the dead world. She typed her message carefully, choosing each word with care. This was history. This was the moment when humanity confirmed it was truly alone. As she worked, she thought about her family back on Earth. Her mother lived in a small apartment in Bizen, growing vegetables on her tiny balcony. Her younger brother was studying medicine in Seoul. They were alive because of pure luck. The same luck that had saved all of humanity for reasons nobody understood. Meanwhile, Yuna went down to the engine room to prepare for the long journey. The Endurance's faster-than-light drive was old but reliable. She had rebuilt it twice with spare parts and determination. Now she checked every connection, every seal, every line of code. The ship hummed around her like a living thing. She placed her hand on the warm metal wall and whispered, "Don't fail me now, old friend. We have work to do." On the bridge, Sora plotted their course. Her screen showed the path they would take, curving through empty space toward a world that should have been full of life. The Mithrani had been beautiful creatures, tall and graceful with silver skin and 4 arms. They had created music that could make humans weep with joy. Now their songs were silent forever. Sora wondered what they would find on Thesser IV bodies. Ruins or something worse. In the medical bay, Taiho reviewed his supplies. If they encountered any survivors, he needed to be ready. He knew it was unlikely. After 3 years of silence, hope was a luxury they could barely afford. But he prepared anyway, because that was who he was. A doctor never stopped hoping. Captain Dohan remained in his quarters long after the meeting ended. He looked at the recording of the Valori message and played it one more time. May the stars forgive us. What had they done? What had any of them done to deserve this? The Galactic War had been brutal, yes. Millions had died on all sides. But this? The complete extinction of every species except one? It seemed like punishment from an angry god. But Dohan did not believe in angry gods. He believed in cause and effect. He believed that everything had an explanation. Even if that explanation was terrible, tomorrow they would begin their journey to the graveyard of civilizations. They would find answers, or they would die trying. He turned off his tablet and sat in the darkness. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the ruins of 1,000 worlds waited in silence. And humanity, the survivors, the last ones standing, sailed toward them on a ship held together by hope and rust. The Endurance shuddered slightly as its engines began to power up. The journey had begun. The planet appeared on their screens like a blue jewel floating in darkness. Thesser 4 looked peaceful from orbit. Its ocean sparkled under twin suns. Its continents were green with forests and fields. White clouds drifted across its surface like cotton. It looked alive. But they all knew it was not. Captain Doan stood on the bridge, watching the planet grow larger. Around them, dozens of ships hung motionless in space. Mithrani vessels of all sizes, from small personal craft to massive cargo haulers, drifted without power or purpose. Their lights were dark. Their engines were cold. They were tombs floating in the void. No signals, Gina reported from her station. No power signatures. No life signs. Nothing. Yuna looked at her readings with a frown. The ships are intact. No battle damage, no system failures. They just stopped. Take us down, Do-hwan ordered. We'll land near the capital city. The Endurance descended through the atmosphere. As they got closer, they could see more details. Roads stretched across the landscape, connecting cities and towns. Vehicles sat motionless on those roads. In the fields, farming machines stood frozen in the middle of their work. They landed on a platform outside the capital, a beautiful city of tall towers and flowing bridges. The architecture was stunning. The Mithrani had always been artists, and their buildings looked more like sculptures than structures. Everything was made of a silvery metal that caught the light and seemed to glow. But there was no movement, no sound. The city was perfectly preserved and completely empty. Yuna led the ground team. With her came Taiho for medical expertise and Han Minho for security. Minho was a quiet man with sharp eyes and quick reflexes. He carried a weapon, though none of them expected to use it against anything living. They stepped out of the shuttle and onto the platform. The air was fresh and clean. Birds sang in the distance. A warm breeze carried the scent of flowers. "It's beautiful," Taiho said softly. "How can something so beautiful be so dead?" They walked into the city. The streets were wide and lined with trees. Benches sat in pleasant spots for rest. Fountains still bubbled with clear water, powered by solar collectors that continued to work even without anyone to maintain them. And everywhere they looked, they saw the signs of interrupted life. A cafe had tables set outside, with cups still sitting where customers had left them. The liquid inside had long since evaporated, leaving dark stains. In a shop window, clothes hung on display, waiting for buyers who would never come. A child's toy lay on the sidewalk, rotten. "No bodies," Minho observed. "Where are the bodies?" It was true. They had expected to find the remains of the Mithrani everywhere. Instead, they found nothing but their possessions. Taiho knelt down and examined the ground. His scanner beeped quietly. "There's something here. A thin layer of organic residue, covering everything." "What kind of residue?" Yuna asked. Taiho's face went pale as he read the results. "Biological material. Proteins, lipids, cellular remains. It's everywhere. On the streets, the buildings, the furniture." Minho understood first. They didn't disappear. They dissolved. The Mithrani turned into this. They stood in silence, suddenly aware that they were walking on the remains of millions of people. Every surface was covered with a thin film of what had once been living, thinking beings. The entire city was a graveyard, and they could not see the graves. Yuna felt sick. What could do this? What could reduce an entire population to molecules in seconds? "We need to find out," Taiho said. "Let's check the government building. They might have records." The central government building was the tallest structure in the city. Its doors stood open, as if waiting for workers who would never return. Inside, the halls were grand and decorated with paintings and sculptures. Emergency lights still glowed, casting long shadows across the floor. They found a communications center on the upper floor. Screens lined the walls, all showing frozen images from 3 years ago. Gina had given them tools to access alien systems, and Yuna used them now, her fingers moving quickly across unfamiliar controls. "I'm accessing their final logs," she said. "The day they died." The screens came to life with recordings. A Mithrani official appeared, tall and elegant with silver skin and 4 graceful arms. He was speaking rapidly, his voice full of fear. The wave is approaching. All shields have failed. We have tried everything. The Valori are already gone. The OSC have stopped responding. We estimate 7 minutes until contact. To anyone who receives this message, do not try to fight it. It cannot be stopped. We call it the silence because nothing survives its touch. We do not know where it came from. We do not know why it is happening. We only know that we are the next to die. May the stars remember us. May someone survive to tell our story. The silence is. The recording ended suddenly. The official had been mid-sentence when he ceased to exist. Yuna downloaded everything she could find. Reports, research data, communications between worlds. The Mythrani had been studying the silence for 3 days before it reached them. 3 days of watching other civilizations vanish one by one. 3 days of knowing death was coming and being unable to stop it. Back on the shuttle, Minho stood guard while the others worked. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the empty streets. He knew there was no danger here. Whatever had killed this world was long gone. But old habits were hard to break. A sound made him turn. Just the wind, moving through the empty buildings like a ghost. The city almost seemed to be breathing. "Let's go," Yuna said when she finished. "I have everything." They returned to the Endurance and gathered in the meeting room. Gina had been working on decrypting the data while they were gone, and now she presented her findings. The silence was an energy wave. It originated from somewhere in the galactic core and spread outward in all directions, faster than light. It passed through shields, walls, even planetary bodies. Nothing could block it. When it touched organic life, it broke down cellular bonds instantly. Every living thing within its reach was reduced to base components in less than a second. Sora leaned forward. How far did it reach? Everywhere. Based on their calculations, the silence swept across the entire galaxy. Every inhabited world, every space station, every ship. Everything? Then how are we still alive? Taiho asked. The wave must have hit Earth. It must have hit us. Gina shook her head. I don't know. According to this data, the silence should have killed every organic being in the galaxy, including humans. But here we are. Captain Dowan looked at his crew. Each of them was thinking the same thing. They had survived something impossible. They were alive when they should have been dead. We need more information, he said. The Mythrani were scientists, but they only had 3 days to study this phenomenon. Maybe someone else learned more. Sora pulled up a star map. The OSC Collective was older than the Mythrani. They might have had more time to research before the silence reached them. Their home world is 4 weeks from here. Then, that's where we go next, Dohan said. As the Endurance lifted off from Lesser 4, Taiho took one last look at the beautiful, dead planet below. Somewhere down there, millions of people had lived and dreamed. Now, they were nothing but a thin layer of dust on empty streets. He thought about the recording of the Mythrani official, the fear in his voice, the desperation. He had known he was going to die, and he had spent his last moments trying to leave a message for survivors who might never come. But survivors had come. Humans had come, and they still had no idea why they were the only ones left. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the graveyard of Lesser behind. Ahead lay more dead worlds, more silent cities, more questions without answers. Somewhere in the darkness, the truth was waiting. They just had to find it before it found them. 3 more worlds. 3 more graveyards. The Endurance traveled from system to system, documenting the remains of civilizations that had flourished for thousands of years. Each planet told the same story. Life interrupted. People erased. Cities standing empty like monuments to the dead. The crew grew quieter with each passing week. They had seen too much death. They had walked through too many silent streets. Even the most hopeful among them found it hard to believe they would find anything but more corpses. Then they reached the Osk homeworld. The Osk had been an ancient species, one of the first to develop space travel. Their planet was ringed with orbital stations, hundreds of them, each serving a different purpose. Research, manufacturing, trade, defense. The Osk had built their civilization in the stars. As much as on the ground dot, most of the stations were dark and dead like everything else. But Sora's sharp eyes caught something different. "There," she said, pointing to her screen. "That station has power. Minimal, but it's there." Captain Dowan leaned forward. "Could be automated systems keeping something running. Solar collectors, maybe." "Only one way to find out," Una said. They docked with the station carefully. The airlock still worked, pressurizing with a soft hiss as the doors opened. Inside, emergency lights cast a dim red glow over metal corridors. Minho led the way, his weapon ready. Behind him came Yuna and Taiho, with Gina monitoring their progress from the ship. They moved slowly, checking each room they passed. Storage areas. Empty offices. A cafeteria with trays of fossilized food still sitting on tables. Then Minho stopped. "I hear something." They all listened. A soft humming sound, mechanical and steady, coming from somewhere deeper in the station. They followed it through winding corridors until they reached a sealed door marked with Osk symbols. "Medical Bay," Taiho translated, reading from his tablet. "Or something like it." Yuna accessed the door controls. The lock clicked open and they stepped inside. The room was small and cold. Most of it was filled with equipment they did not recognize. But in the center, bathed in pale blue light, stood a stasis pod. And inside that pod was a figure. "It's an Osk," Taiho breathed. "A living Osk." The Osk were strange creatures by human standards. They had no faces in the traditional sense, just smooth heads with sensory organs distributed across their skin. Their bodies were flexible, almost boneless, with multiple limbs that could bend in any direction. This one floated in suspension fluid, completely still. A maintenance drone moved around the pod, checking displays and adjusting controls. It had been doing this for 3 years, keeping its one patient alive while the rest of the universe died. "Can we wake them?" Dohan asked over the communication link. Taiho studied the pod's controls. "I think so. Their biology is different from ours, but the principles are similar. They're in deep hibernation to survive long-term stasis. I can bring them out slowly." "Do it," Dowan ordered. The process took 6 hours. Taiho worked carefully, adjusting chemical levels and temperature while monitoring the Osk's vital signs. The others waited, barely daring to hope. After all this time, after all these dead worlds, they might finally have someone who could give them answers. The Osk woke slowly. Their limbs twitched first, then their sensory organs flickered to life. Finally, they opened their communication membranes and made a sound like wind through hollow tubes. Taiho's translator struggled with the language, but eventually words formed. "Where? What year? How long?" "You've been asleep for 3 years," Taiho said gently. "Do you understand me?" The Osk was silent for a long moment. Then they spoke again, their voice stronger. "I understand. I am called Vessel 7. I was a diplomat, traveling to negotiate a treaty. My ship was damaged by debris. I entered the stasis pod to await rescue." Taiho glanced at the others. "Vessel 7, I have to tell you something, and it will be very hard to hear." He explained everything. The silence, the dead worlds, the empty galaxy. He spoke slowly and carefully, giving the Osk time to process each terrible fact. When he finished, Vessel 7 did not move for a long time. Their limbs hung limp, their sensory organs dimmed. The translator picked up sounds that might have been weeping, or might have been something else entirely. All of them, Vessel 7 finally said. My people, my family, my world, all gone. I'm sorry, Taiho said. I'm so sorry. They gave Vessel 7 time to grieve. Hours passed while the Osk floated in the corner of the medical bay, communicating with no one. The crew of the Endurance waited patiently. They understood loss. They had all lost people in the war. This was different, of course. This was losing everyone. But they could still offer their presence, their silence, their respect. Eventually, Vessel 7 approached them again. You said you are human. I know of your species. You are young, new to the galaxy. How did you survive when we did not? We don't know, Dohwan admitted. That's what we're trying to find out. Vessel 7's sensory organs moved in a pattern that might have meant surprise. You truly do not know? Then let me tell you what I know, and perhaps together we can find the answer. They gathered in the station's conference room, where Vessel 7 could rest in a pool of water while they talked. The Osk's voice grew stronger as they spoke, as if sharing knowledge gave them purpose. The silence was not natural. It was a weapon. The crew exchanged looks. They had suspected this, but hearing it confirmed was different. Long ago, Vessel 7 continued, before my species existed, there were elder races in this galaxy. They built great things. They also built terrible things. One of those terrible things was a failsafe, a weapon designed to reset life in the galaxy if it ever became too dangerous. Too dangerous how? Sora asked. War. The weapon was called the Purifier. It was designed to activate if organic life began destroying itself through conflict. The creators believed that species who waged war were a threat to the galaxy's future. The Purifier would eliminate them and allow life to begin again, hopefully more peacefully. Yuna's voice was sharp. The Galactic War. We triggered it. Yes, Vessel 7 said. The war between your species and ours and the Mithrani and so many others. It escalated beyond anything the galaxy had seen in millions of years. The Purifier detected this and activated. It was supposed to cleanse all aggressive species. But it killed everyone, Gina said. The Valori weren't even in the war. They were peacekeepers. The Purifier was not precise. It targeted a neurological signature, a pattern in the brain that indicates the capacity for violence against one's own kind. Every species in the galaxy had this pattern. Every species except, apparently, yours. All eyes turned to the humans. That's impossible, Taiho said. Humans are violent. We've been fighting each other since the beginning of our history. We had wars that killed millions. Vessel 7 moved their limbs in a gesture that might have been confusion. Then I do not understand. By all measures, humans should have been the first to die. Yet here you stand. Captain Dohwan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. There was something deeply wrong here. They had survived something designed specifically to kill species like them. Why? How? Is there any way to find out more? He asked. Any records of how the Purifier works? Vessel 7 was quiet for a moment. There is a place. The Purifier's control station. The Elders called it the Threshold. It exists at the edge of the galaxy, where no one ever traveled. If answers exist anywhere, they exist there. Can you show us the way? I can, but I warn you, Captain. Whatever truth waits at the threshold, it may not be a truth you want to know. Understanding why you survived might be more terrible than simply being grateful that you did. Dohwan looked at his crew. Yuna with her practical eyes. Taiho with his compassionate heart. Sora with her endless curiosity. Minho with his quiet strength. Gina with her determination. They had come too far to stop now. Show us the way, Dohwan said. Whatever the truth is, we need to know. Vessel 7 agreed to join them. They had nowhere else to go, nothing left to return to. And perhaps, they said, helping these strange human survivors was the last service they could perform for a galaxy that no longer existed. The Endurance left the OSC homeworld behind and turned toward the edge of everything. 4 months of travel lay ahead. 4 months to prepare for a truth that might destroy them. The journey to the threshold took 4 months, just as Vessel 7 had predicted. 4 months of empty space, distant stars, and too much time to think. Una spent her days in the engineering bay, studying every piece of data they had collected about the silence. She built models and ran simulations. She compared the energy signatures to everything in the ship's database. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to understand how the weapon worked. It's beautiful in a horrible way, she told the others during one of their regular meetings. The purifier sends out a wave that resonates with specific neural patterns. When it finds a match, it disrupts cellular bonds at the molecular level. Instant death. No pain, probably. Just ending at targeted aggression? Sora asked. Not exactly. It targeted the capacity for intraspecies violence. The ability to harm others of your own kind. Every sapient species in the galaxy developed this capacity as they evolved. It's actually necessary for survival. Competition for resources, defense of territory, protection of offspring. But it also leads to war. Taiho had been quiet during these discussions, spending most of his time in the medical bay reviewing data. Something was bothering him, but he was not ready to share it yet. He needed to be sure. Vessel 7 adapted slowly to life among humans. They found the crew strange, but not unpleasant. Humans laughed easily and cried easily. They touched each other often, a gesture that had no equivalent in OSC culture. They argued loudly and forgave quickly. Your species is very emotional, Vessel 7 observed one day. You feel everything so strongly. Is that bad? Gina asked. I do not know. It is simply different. The OSC valued control. We believed that strong emotions led to poor decisions. But perhaps that belief did not save us in the end. Captain Dohan spent his time preparing for what they might find at the threshold. He wrote reports for Earth Command, documenting everything they had learned. He made contingency plans for every scenario he could imagine. And in his private moments, he wondered if they were making a mistake. Knowledge was not always a gift. Sometimes it was a burden. Minho trained every day, keeping his body sharp and his mind focused. He did not understand science the way Una did, or medicine the way Taiho did. But he understood duty. His job was to protect this crew, and he would do it until his last breath. Sora plotted their course with careful precision. The edge of the galaxy was uncharted territory, full of ancient stars and dying nebulae. Navigation was difficult, but she found a path through the darkness. On the 97th day, Taiho finally asked to speak with Captain Dowan in private. They met in the captain's quarters. The same small room where Dowan had first heard the Valori's final message. It felt like a lifetime ago. I found something, Taiho said. His voice was heavy. Something about why we survived. Dowan waited. Taiho pulled up a holographic display showing human brain scans alongside scans of other species. The purifier targets a specific neural signature, the capacity for violence against your own kind. In most species, this signature is distinct. It activates during conflict and deactivates during peace. The weapon can identify it easily. He changed the display to show human brain patterns. Humans are different. We don't have a separate aggressive state. Our neural signatures show that violence is integrated into every level of our psychology. It's not something we switch on and off. It's always there, woven into everything we do. What does that mean? Do-Hwan asked, though he was beginning to understand. It means humans evolved in constant conflict. Not just wars between nations, but conflict at every level. Within families, within communities, within ourselves. We're always fighting something, always in a state of tension. Even when we think we're at peace, our brains are still primed for conflict. Taiho's voice dropped. The purifier couldn't target us because it couldn't separate our aggressive patterns from our normal patterns. To the weapon, we don't look like a species capable of war. We look like something it can't identify at all. We survived because we're too broken for it to recognize. The words hung in the air between them. Do-Hwan sat down heavily. We survived because we're damaged. That's one way to put it. Another way is that we survived because we adapted. Humans lived in a world of constant threat. We evolved to handle it by integrating aggression into our basic functioning. Other species compartmentalized their violence. We absorbed it. Is this something we should share with the crew? Taiho considered the question. They deserve to know. But I wanted to tell you first. This changes how we understand ourselves. We're not survivors because we're special or chosen. We're survivors because we're exactly the kind of species the weapon was designed to eliminate. But we're so thoroughly that way that it couldn't see us. That night, Do-Hwan gathered the senior crew and shared Taiho's findings. The room was silent as he spoke. When he finished, no one knew what to say. Yuna was the first to speak. So we're the broken ones? The species too damaged to be recognized as a threat. Or the species most adapted to a hostile universe, Sora countered. Perspective matters. Does it? We survived because violence is so fundamental to our nature that a weapon designed to detect violence couldn't find it. That's not adaptation. That's mutation. Gina shook her head. I don't think it's that simple. Yes, we have conflict built into us. But we also have cooperation. We also have love and sacrifice and hope. If we were purely violent, we would have destroyed ourselves long ago. Vessel 7 listened to the debate with growing interest. Perhaps, they said slowly, the truth is somewhere in between. You humans contain contradictions. You are capable of great cruelty and great kindness. You destroy and you create. You hate and you love. Perhaps this complexity, this internal division, is what makes you invisible to a weapon that sees the galaxy in simple terms. Minho, who rarely spoke in meetings, surprised everyone. I don't care why we survived. I care what we do now. We're the last ones standing. That means we have a responsibility. We can sit here and feel bad about ourselves, or we can figure out how to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. His words cut through the philosophical debate like a blade. Captain Do-Hwan nodded. Minho is right. Understanding ourselves is important, but it's not the end goal. The threshold is still ahead. Whatever we find there, we need to be ready to act. The Endurance continued its journey. The crew processed the revelation in their own ways. Some found it disturbing. Some found it strangely comforting. All of them felt changed by it. On the final day before they reached the threshold, Do-Hwan stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the ancient stars. They were so far from home now that familiar constellations had become meaningless. Earth was just another point of light, lost in the vastness. Vessel 7 joined him, their fluid body rippling as they moved. You are troubled, Captain. Wouldn't you be? I am beyond troubled. I am empty. My entire civilization is gone. But watching your crew, I find something I did not expect to feel. What's that? Hope. Vessel 7's sensory organs turned toward the stars. You humans are strange and broken and beautiful. You carry violence in your hearts, but you also carry something else. Something that makes you reach out across the darkness, searching for answers, searching for others, searching for meaning. If any species was going to survive the end of everything, perhaps it should have been you. Do-Wan did not know how to respond. He was not sure he believed it, but he appreciated the sentiment. Tomorrow they would reach the threshold. Tomorrow, they would face the weapon that had killed the galaxy. And tomorrow, they would find out if being human was enough to save them once more. The threshold was enormous, it hung in space like a metal moon, orbiting a dying red star that cast everything in bloody light. The station was ancient beyond measure, built by hands that had turned to dust millions of years ago. Its surface was covered with structures that defied easy understanding, towers and domes in shapes that had no names in any living language. The Endurance approached slowly, almost reverently. They had traveled so far to reach this place. Now that they were here, no one was eager to rush. "I'm detecting power signatures," Yuna reported. "The station is active." "Very active. Weapons?" Minho asked. "No. Processing systems. The purifier isn't dormant. It's running continuously, scanning the galaxy." Gina looked up from her console. "It's still looking for threats. Still ready to fire." A chill ran through the bridge. The weapon that had killed every other species in the galaxy was still operational, still watching, still waiting. And they were flying straight toward it. Captain Do-Wan made his decision. "We dock. We go inside. We find answers." They landed on one of the station's docking platforms, ancient machinery groaning to life to receive them. The airlock still worked, pressurizing with air that smelled of metal and age. Emergency lights activated as they stepped inside, illuminating corridors that had been dark for eons. The architecture was strange. The walls were covered with symbols that no one could read, patterns that might have been writing or might have been something else entirely. The ceiling was too high, designed for beings taller than humans. Everything felt wrong, like walking through a dream. "The station is aware of us," Vessel 7 said suddenly. "It is scanning." Everyone froze. "Is it targeting us?" Do-Wan asked. "It is trying, but it cannot complete the scan. It keeps failing and restarting." Yuna understood. "It can't identify us." Just like Taiho said, the Purifier's targeting system doesn't know what to make of humans. They moved deeper into the station, following power signatures toward the central core. Along the way, they passed chambers filled with equipment they could not understand. Some rooms were empty. Others contained things that might have been art, or might have been warnings. Then they found the archives. It was a vast chamber, larger than any space had a right to be. Floating in the air were millions of crystalline structures, each one glowing with soft inner light. Data storage. More information than any civilization had ever assembled. "These are memories," Vessel 7 whispered. "Genetic codes. Cultural records. Historical archives. Every species the Purifier eliminated is stored here. The weapon preserved them before it destroyed them." Gina walked among the crystals, her hand reaching out but not quite touching. "This is everything. Everyone who ever lived in this galaxy. Their stories, their songs, their dreams. All of it saved. A memorial," Taiho said. "The creators wanted someone to remember, even after they were gone." They continued to the central core, where the Purifier's control systems awaited. The room was dominated by a massive crystal column that pulsed with energy. Displays surrounded it, showing star maps and neural signatures and targeting parameters. The machine was beautiful and terrible. It had killed billions of people with perfect efficiency, and it had preserved their memories with equal care. Creator and destroyer in one. Yuna approached the controls. "I can access the programming. The Purifier uses a template to identify threats. If I modify that template, I can change what it targets. Or we could destroy it," Minho said. "Shut it down forever." "If we destroy it, we lose the archives," Sora replied. All those memories, gone forever. And if we leave it running, it might fire again someday. They all looked to Captain Do-hwan. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like a physical force. Destroy the weapon and lose the only record of the galaxy's dead civilizations. Preserve the archives and risk another catastrophe. Taiho stepped forward. There's a third option. I can reprogram the targeting system using human neural patterns as the baseline. If humans become the template for what's safe, the purifier will never fire again. Nothing will match its criteria for elimination. But that means defining all future life by human standards, Vessel 7 said. Any species that evolves differently might be at risk. Any species that evolves intelligence will probably develop conflict. The Osk did. The Mytherin did. Every species we've encountered did. If the template is based on humans, which integrate conflict into their basic nature, then any species that develops similarly will be safe. And species that compartmentalize violence like you did? Taiho was honest. I don't know. They might still be at risk. But the alternative is leaving the weapon as it is, ready to fire at any new civilization that develops war. The crew debated for hours. Vessel 7 offered their perspective, though they admitted they had no right to decide the fate of species that did not yet exist. In the end, they voted. The decision was not unanimous. But it was clear. Gina began uploading the new parameters. It took time. The system was ancient and the modifications were complex. While she worked, the others wandered through the archives, looking at the crystals that held the memories of the dead. Do-hwan found himself standing before a cluster that represented the Valori. He thought about their final message, the fear and hope in their words. They had wanted someone to survive. They had wanted someone to remember. I don't know if we deserve to be the ones who lived, he said quietly. But we're going to try to be worthy of it. The upload completed. The purifier's crystal column flickered, its color shifting from cold blue to warm amber. The targeting systems recalibrated. Scans ran across the galaxy and found nothing to eliminate. For the first time since its creation, the weapon went truly silent. Yuna ran diagnostics. It's done. The purifier is still active, but it has no targets. It will protect the archives and monitor the galaxy, but it won't kill anything. Not unless something completely alien emerges. And the archives? Preserved, accessible. Anyone who comes here can learn about the species that came before. They spend 3 more days at the threshold, exploring and documenting. The archives contained wonders beyond imagination. Music from species that had evolved in liquid methane. Art created by beings who saw in wavelengths humans could not perceive. Philosophy from civilizations that had pondered questions humanity had not yet learned to ask. All of it was saved. All of it would endure. Before they left, Vessel 7 asked to remain. This place holds the memory of my people, they explained. I wish to stay and guard it. Perhaps someday others will come, and I can share what was lost. Do-hwan understood. You'll be alone. I have been alone since I woke from stasis. At least here, I will have purpose. They said their farewells. The crew of the Endurance had come to respect Vessel 7, even to care for them. Leaving was hard. But it was right dot the ship departed from the threshold and turned toward home. The journey back would take months, but they had time. They had all the time in the universe. On the observation deck, Gina found Do-hwan staring out at the stars. The dying red sun was shrinking behind them, becoming just another point of light. What do we tell Earth? She asked. How do we explain all of this? We tell them the truth. That we survived because of what we are, not in spite of it. That the galaxy is empty, but not forever. That we have a responsibility now as the inheritors of everything that was lost. Do you think humanity can live up to that? Do-hwan thought about the question. He thought about human history, all the wars and cruelty and destruction. But he also thought about the kindness he had seen, the sacrifice, the love. The way Taiho cared for patients he barely knew. The way Yuna worked tirelessly to solve problems. The way Minho protected others without asking for thanks. The way Sora reached for the stars because they were beautiful. "I think we have to try," he said. "The galaxy gave us a second chance. We owe it to everyone who didn't survive to make something good out of it." The Endurance jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the edge of the galaxy behind. Ahead lay Earth, waiting to hear what they had discovered. Ahead lay a future that humanity would have to build alone, but not entirely alone. The archives remained at the threshold, a library of everything the galaxy had ever been. And somewhere in those archives, alongside the memories of the Valori and the Mithrani and the Osk and all the others, there was now a new entry: humanity, the survivors, the inheritors, the last ones standing. The stars burned around them, cold and distant and full of possibility. The journey was not over. In many ways, it was just beginning. And humanity sailed on into the darkness, carrying the weight of a galaxy on their shoulders and the hope of a future in their hearts. The end.